Good evening. Today is October 26, 2020, and this is the 23rd episode of New Paradigms. I'm your host, Sargis Sangari, the Republican nominee for U.S. Congress in the 9th Congressional District of Illinois. My guest today is Jeanne Ives. Jeanne Ives is the Republican nominee for the U.S. Congress in the 6th District of Illinois. Jeanne served 3 terms as an Illinois state representative. First elected in 2012, Representative Ives demonstrated not only a willingness to lead on difficult issues, but at the same time, and question powerful Illinois House leaders, also provide insightful understanding of policy. Her legislation has been recognized throughout the state, and her opinion articles and editorials have been published in the Chicago Tribune, the Federalist, and the Wall Street Journal, as well as several other political news sites. Representative Ives graduated from West Point class of 1987 with a Bachelor of Science in Economics. She went on to serve in the United States Army. Her assignments included platoon leader and headquarters detachment commander for transportation units in Germany, and also a Reserve Officer Training Corps ROTC instructor position at Wheaton College. She left the Army in 1993 in order to be able to raise her children. At the same time, she worked as a tax advisor and a bookkeeper for small businesses and individuals alike. One of her greatest joys was coaching the championship St. Michael boys and girls cross-country teams for 12 years as a parent volunteer. Prior to her election to the Illinois House, Ives also served as a Wheaton City Council, where her tenure was marked by conservative leadership and an unwavering commitment to the taxpayer's bottom line. During her tenure, Representative Ives also focused on bringing about the pension and also tax reform in the state government, transparency, and also advocating for school choice. Representative Ives refused on both taxpayer-funded pensions to take them and healthcare. Both pensions and the state group healthcare insurances have greatly contributed to the budget pressures and also need major reforms. Her awards include Champion of the Free Enterprise from the Illinois Chamber of Commerce, the inaugural Titanium Backbone Award from the Illinois Family Institute for her pro-family stance and 100% rating from the American Conservative Union. In 2018, she was enlisted by the Illinois families and also business owners, as well as legislative colleagues, to run a campaign for governor. U.S. Chamber of Commerce has endorsed Jeanne for her strong pro-business stance, and she has been endorsed by the National Federation of Independent Businesses in this year's race. Jeanne has lived in Wheaton for 27 years with her husband, Paul, who himself is a U.S. Military Academy graduate of '87, and their 5 children. Her 2 oldest sons are in the military. The eldest is an infantry captain with his Ranger tab serving in the 1st Battalion, 24th Infantry Regiment in Alaska. This is actually the same unit that I served with in a platoon leader, mortar platoon leader, and executive officer position with the Deuce 4 from 95 to 98 when the unit was stationed in Washington State. And her second son is a 2016 West Point graduate who was commissioned into the Navy upon graduation and is in training to become a Navy pilot. Before I welcome Jeanne, and before we get to know who she is, there's a small video that I want our viewers to watch.
I'm Jeanne Ives, and I approve this message.
Sean Casten makes more than most Americans, but complains, calls it peanuts. While Illinoisans have the highest overall tax burden, Sean Casten lobbies for a raise and takes an illegal tax break on his luxury DC condo. While most Americans try to survive the worst economic crisis in a generation, Sean Casten is trying to raise taxes on the families that pay his salary. Sean Casten, voting himself richer, voting you poorer.
Jeanne, you have raised an outstanding all-American military family. God bless you and your family service to our nation, and welcome to New Paradigms.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. I'm looking forward to our time to talk about the core issues that face Americans.
I think that's pretty much it. We got to look at those core issues. But before we begin today, there's a couple of noteworthy pieces that we got to cover. And I had to kind of lead it this way, but I might as well lead it with what happened with the shootings in Chicago again. Jeanne, I'm not sure what your thoughts are as to what is happening in Chicago and how can we handle the issues going forward.
It's a very sad situation. It's, it's gotten worse, not better, under Mayor Lightfoot. And I just feel like, under Kim Foxx, they just have no control over crime and gangs in the South Side, on the West Side, even in the Loop. I mean, the rioting that you saw this summer, has continued to turn into just more gang violence. And my thought is that they do not have control of the city, and that nobody should be faced with 23 shot and 6 fatally over a weekend. I mean, this is, for most of us in this area, we don't even check the statistics anymore. It's become such a common occurrence that it doesn't seem to shock our system, which is really sad as well. But there's no doubt they've been lousy at fixing the problem.
No, it is sad. And for me, especially even at the village levels, Skokie Village on November 2nd is set to pass an ordinance change that if you steal anything from $300 below, that you're going to just get a simple ticket. So this is how you kind of open the door to these issues that lead to what we're dealing with today with the violence. Because until you can start enforcing the laws on the books, and people going to jail, you're going to end up having to deal with these issues constantly. It's unfortunate that this year we may surpass the number of soldiers that were killed in direct action, specifically in combat between the two wars in Illinois, given the numbers might surpass both actual wars.
No, it's unfortunate. I can't believe that in this day and age in America that we cannot control gang violence. It's unconscionable. They lack a will to enforce the rules that are already in effect. There's all sorts of gun laws in the state of Illinois. There's no reason for this other than they are not enforcing the law on gun felons. So you get arrested with a gun, you go to prison. When they tried that action in Richmond, Virginia in the late 90s, it worked. They were told if you get caught with an illegal weapon, you're going to federal prison for 5 years. And guess what? The violence stopped. It dramatically decreased. And we just don't do that. And this is not the first time. I mean, so you can steal anything up to $300 and nothing happens to you. This is exactly why Target moved out of some parts of the south suburbs, because the looting laws weren't getting enforced. Kim Foxx said, if you don't steal more than $1,000, then we're really not going to do anything with you.
Well, it's unfortunate, but it's moving to the suburbs. So we'll see what we could do. All we could do is maybe get individuals like you into Congress, lawmakers that have the will to bring, peaceful tranquility back to our streets, law and order type of candidates. And then with what we're trying to do, especially with the current POTUS putting federal judges in and others at the local levels that are going to endorse, or not endorse, but enforce those laws. On a brighter note, I would say that, especially with today's confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett, hopefully we can start moving towards a position where we can have individuals who are actually going to follow the Constitution and execute the laws on the books.
Well, Sargis, look, you're a law and order candidate as well. You understand common sense. You understand that if you're not going to enforce the law, then people aren't going to obey the law. I mean, it's just common sense. This is not difficult, but you talk about the federal prosecutors and restoring law and order. It's really only been President Trump through his federal prosecutors that have started to tackle even white collar corruption that you've seen across the state of Illinois. So who is the people that are shaking down ComEd and the Mike Madigan connection on the bribery scheme? Well, who was doing that? The federal prosecutors. It wasn't the state's attorney. It wasn't Kwame Raoul, the attorney general of Illinois. It was the federal prosecutors. And so when the local officials won't do it, thankfully we do have President Trump and all the prosecutors he's been able to get appointed into places where they can actually affect change in the state.
No, I hope that we get there to where we can start enforcing those laws, like you said, and get those individuals at the federal level. One thing I've pushed with the federal legislator, with the federal prosecutors, is that I do understand that they work a number of years to make sure the case is solid, but I would hope that they would go away from from these agreements that sometimes they strike in order to be able to possibly settle on cases. And yeah, you may lose a case or two if you don't strike those agreements, but go after them and finally, put to rest the ability of the bad guys being able to, sign a DPA in order to be able to pay a smaller fine to get out. And I hope that it doesn't happen, especially what has happened with the Madigan issue and corruption at the state level, which I guess the biggest piece for us is going to be leading into your particular district. If you could kind of give us a layout in your district a little bit, Jeannie, and let us know what are some of the bigger issues that you're dealing with within your boundaries.
Well, this is a terrific district to represent, quite frankly. It's the western suburbs. It starts kind of in Hinsdale and wraps it across Clarendon Hills and Westmont and Downers Grove and Lisle and Wheaton, and then it takes a little turn in the northeast section of St. Charles and by Wayne, and it goes out to Gilbert's and up into Algonquin and Crystal Lake and Cary and Lake in the Hills, and then back all the way over to Lake Zurich and into Palatine and Long Grove, a little piece there, and the Barringtons, most of the Barringtons. So it's a big kind of seed that obviously was gerrymandered. And it's a district that you have seen a demographic shift occur into, where you've had people move out of the city and out of other parts of Cook County into the 6th district, where it's been conservatively run by Republicans, either at the county level or at the local level. And you've got good schools, you've got safe streets, lots of open space, many parks, really good not-for-profits, a caring community that actually works for most family and lets businesses grow their businesses in a reasonable fashion. So it's a great, productive district. In fact, when you look at the IRS data, this district, this 6th congressional district, produces more income, individual income, than any other district in the state of Illinois. That's on the individual level. So that's about $45 billion of individual income. It comes out of this district, and so we should have a big booming voice in Washington, D.C., and I plan to represent that district, not rule over them, but take their issues, level that up to Congress, and find out how we can solve problems, because we are natural problem solvers in this district, and we have a generous heart as well.
I know that, for me, it's unfortunate because the GDP that is generated out of your district is way beyond what we have even seen here. I know that I've had the endorsement of the mayor of Lincolnwood within my district, who has said that there's been no support at the national level because the incumbent armor running, you guys just talks to a small echo chamber, has no concept of how business works. Money has to come through those businesses, and once it comes through those businesses, it is going to be a circular process by which money goes from the businesses to the people invest it back into those businesses. This is what capitalism is, and I think under socialist ideology, it's just a matter of just grabbing those dollars, especially through tax processes, and try to maybe give bailouts to certain businesses that eventually are going to die because that money will dry out. So I know that your GDP is stronger than mine, and I hope maybe in the long run we could actually work together and try to generate some needed dollars and cash flow that will come from the congressional levels here to support those small businesses after we've dealt with COVID.
Well, Sargis, let's be honest with this. This district is a very productive district, and just like everybody in the state of Illinois, we do not want our private health insurance taken away from us and then push our family onto government-run health care. We don't want that at all. We don't think that it's even. I actually personally think, and I think most people think, it's un-American for the Democrats and their entire party to suggest that you're going to have a public option insurance program that competes with the private sector. That's not what we do in America. If you want that system, go to the UK or something like that, or go to Canada. But we don't do that. We let our private insurance companies, our private economy, create the best product or service at the lowest cost. It's always happened that way in America. That's something fundamental to what Americans believe in, the free enterprise system. And the Democrats don't believe that way. There's a vast divide between what they want to do in the economy, including my opponent, Sean Casten, who would destroy America's energy independence. And as you know, Sargis, having America being able to be energy independent is a national security issue as well, and certainly has led to the peace accords that you have seen between Israel, the Bahrainians, and the Emiratis.
Yeah, I know your opponent, Sean Casten, has called us basically Nazis. Unfortunately, that term is being thrown around everywhere. It is what it is. The voters eventually have to make a decision. We're at an election right now. You see record numbers are actually voting. This is critical. And it's going to be, even after you win, Jeannie, it's going to be still critical in those 2 years while you're in, because it's going to be a fight. There's a group that wants to take us towards socialism. And some people say, well, what is wrong with that? Trust me, go ask the first and second generation what it is. Right now, the globe is waiting for us to make this decision, because if we decide to go far left, socialist, the entire world is going to collapse. The economy of the world will collapse. And those individuals who sit there and talk about, global warming as a concern, let me tell you, when every nation on the planet is fighting each other because America decided to go the socialist route and the world economy failed, we're in deep trouble. This is what happened. The world reset itself in World War I because its economic, the way it was set up economically, it just wasn't working. It went back through the same fight in World War II. And now we're going to go ahead and lead to a future global conflict instead of doing what Trump is doing with the Abraham Accords. So this is really, you're going to have to make a decision when you walk in. You're either voting for socialism or for capitalism. And frankly, you're going to get one vote, and that's it on 3 November. I know you had talked about
right. Yeah.
Go ahead.
The world is looking at us. The world is looking at this election. They know that it's what's critical too, and maybe not the very last citizen in another country, but honestly, a lot of the leaders are looking to this and they're wondering who's going to protect them in the future. If America goes towards a globalist path, towards a socialist path, then what protects them and their markets in the future? Is it all going to be controlled by the Russians, the Chinese, other global corporations that will control not just the raw materials, but the production and the trade agreements? That is concerning to them. They want America to stay America because America is still the beacon for capitalism. It is still a place where other countries can look to how to run things on a place that respects individual rights and personal property and personal work. And I think that this is a pivotal election. People cannot sit this out. They need to go in and vote for their values.
No, they need to. We've had a record number of voters that have voted already, especially in the early stages. But we still need everybody to go out. And if you voted, please go out and get somebody else to the polls. Every day, get somebody new to the polls. Yep. If you could, that's the best way you could help us out. But I do want to concentrate on one thing because all this is also tied to tax policies. I know we have a short video of you talking about taxes and how it actually is a driver to some of the discussions that are taking place specifically today in our politics. So I'm going to go ahead and play that and get your thoughts.
Okay. It's Reveille. This is your Illinois wake-up call. This is another round of setting the record straight from the debate that I had with Sean Casten on WGN on Friday night. This topic today is on taxes. Now, we could not be more polar opposite on this issue. Sean Casten wants to raise your taxes. He wants to get rid of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017 that saved people in this district over $166 million. Every single tax bracket saw a decrease in the taxes collected, even as this district generated over $4 billion in additional income at the same time. And I want to make those tax cuts permanent. Sean Casten wants to repeal those tax cuts, which would increase the average family's tax bill at the federal level by over $2,000. One thing I did not get to rebut, though, because of the format that we are in, I just could not say this back to him, is Sean Casten said that those tax cuts blew a hole in the federal budget. That is absolutely not true. What blew a hole in the federal budget was the overspending that he voted for. That's what blew a hole, because that Tax Cut and Jobs Act actually increased federal revenues by 4%. But unfortunately, at the same time, Congressman Casten and other Democrats and Republicans, quite frankly, voted to increase the spending by 8%. Well, of course, you're going to have a bigger deficit when you increase spending far more than the revenue that you generated. But by and large, those tax cuts were a good thing specifically for this district, and they need to be made permanent.
Jeannie, your
well,
thoughts?
That's our reveille. Well, look, so one of the clever things that my communications director came up with is the idea that we're going to do a reveille every morning, a wake-up call to Illinoisans about what's going on. We liked the interplay between military, with my military background, and we just thought it was a clever way. And who doesn't need a wake-up call more than everybody sitting in the state of Illinois, which is bankrupt and mismanaged? I mean, this is ridiculous. So this particular reveille was on tax cuts. And look, my opponent, just like your opponent, it wants to repeal the 2017 tax cuts. That would be devastating. Devastating. I mean, we brought down that corporate rate to 21%. What happened then? You had money flow back from overseas into businesses here so that they could reinvest in their employees, reinvest in their operations, and that generated more income. I just told you all that. My opponent also, probably like yours, one is all in for J.B. Pritzker's fair tax, which is really a progressive tax that is going to hurt Illinoisans long term. My opponent, just like I'm sure your opponent, is also their way to solve Social Security's insolvency is to raise Social Security taxes by 20%. You know what it's like with these Democrats. It's one tax cut, one tax increase after another for another failed government program. That is not solving anything.
No, it isn't solving anything. And I say to people, look, we need two parties to function, okay? We need a Republican Democratic Party, but the Democratic Party has huge internal issues. And I got to tell you, I've said to folks who have been long time Democrats for their life, and I've said, look, it doesn't matter if you have a moderate in the Democratic Party. When a vote comes up, guess what? They're all going to vote along the same lines. I mean, think about it. You know, we say who divides the country. Well, when you have one Democrat show up to the inauguration of a president of the United States who was elected by the people, that's when the division begins. And if you're going to go ahead and you're going to call yourself a moderate Democrat, and all you're going to do is total line and do basically exit everything that the socialist far left is demanding of you, then you're no good to your party. The only way, if you're a Democrat out there or independent voter, if you want to save that Democratic Party, it's very simple. You vote Republican this year. You absolutely get out those socialists, because then you give power to those moderate Democrats to stand up against the far leftists in their party. If you do not do it, then you're going to end up having the same issues that everybody else is dealing with across the board. You're going to have more taxes in Illinois, and then you're going to have individuals who only placate to that echo chamber. My mom's Part B Medicare went up. Her Social Security is the same. Why? Because they keep on raiding the Social Security to give it to individuals who are not on the books to do what? In order to sustain themselves in office.
Right. No, you're right about that. All of it. So, there's, and the problem here is that these are long festering problems that nobody has just tackled. And we have to tackle our toughest challenges. That's one of our taglines, by the way, in this campaign, tackling our toughest challenges. And, we're such a sophisticated society financially now that there's no reason that we can't solve these problems. We only have to have the will to solve these problems. And I'm going to Washington, D.C., just like you, to solve problems on behalf of the constituents that I hope to represent.
No, I definitely think you're going to be in Washington, and I think the constituents in your district are smart enough to vote for you, and it'd be an honor to be able to visit the new congresswoman from the 6th Congressional District. from our community. I know we have a large Assyrian community in the 6th, and I can tell you they're all voting for you. So you definitely got our vote. Thank you very much for your support of our community. Jeannie, if people want to know more about you, your policies, where can they go?
Well, you can go to my website, jeannieforcongress.com, and there's a number of videos at the bottom of the front page. And those are videos that we did during the COVID crisis on various topics, so you can get a sense of the conversations I've had with a number of people. You can go to the Issues tab, and you can read all of my answers to the Chicago Tribune editorial board's questions, and that's just a variety of questions that were thrown at us. You can read about that. You can read about my guiding principles also in there. If you go to the news section, you'll see one press release after another about things that we have talked about in this race. There's probably like 15 or 16 pages of them. They're really informative, and they give you a sense of all the issues that have popped up over the last 18 months when we started this campaign and how we feel about them. You'll see issues covered there from my opponent's awful mean tweets to how I feel about healthcare, to again, taxes, to just all sorts of local control issues as well.
Also, I want everybody to know we have a QR code, and I know everybody knows how it works, but for those who may not, just if you take your phone and aim it at the QR code on the bottom, and we'll take you to a donation button. Folks, we still need donations. Jeannie and I still need donations for our campaigns. It's not that on November 3rd, we suddenly become multimillionaires like the people sitting in Congress. We still need to pay out of pocket to fly to DC, to go through orientation, to stay there, make sure we bring our families there in order to be able to go through the process. And, it's still needed. And remember, 2022, there's going to be a campaign. So these campaigns are continuously in need of money and support. And Jeannie, I look forward to seeing you in Congress, and you're going to have to make the promise that you're going to come back to my show once you're a congresswoman. And we'll definitely talk about at least what you're going to be doing.
Well, Sargis, thank you so much for having me on this show. You're a national security expert, and the voters should definitely put you in office, and hopefully we go there together and we can get great things done for Illinoisans.
No, we'll do it. Everybody has to work, has different skill sets and capabilities, and all we can do is work together, reaching across our aisle to do better for America. Now, there's a couple of things I'm going to give updates to our voters that I have spoken to the Hispanic community. We've gotten the endorsement and support from their churches. Same thing with the Serbian community. I think Serbian Times just published a article on me detailing as far as who I am. And also the Hispanic TV channels are covered our race. And we still continue to move forward. That's all we could do. For me, before Joe kills me, because I rarely forget to tell people that you got to go to www.votesangari.com and donate and support us as we keep moving forward. With less than 8 days now left in the race. Jeannie, I'll give you the last words. What are you looking for? What do you expect? And what do you want from the constituents, I guess?
We're expecting record turnout. We're expecting a Republican red wave coming through and taking back the 6th congressional district and other congressional districts in Illinois. We think Illinoisans have had enough of the Democrats and their corruption and their high taxes. And so we're looking forward to serving the people of this state with dignity and with principles.
Yes, we are. And I want to say in closing, God bless your two boys. I know how difficult it is, Mom, because you've served down the range and I've served down the range. So keep them in our prayers, and thank you for everything you have done. You've started with a family, and now you have the opportunity to reach out and touch the lives of many other Americans. And with that said, God bless you. And this is New Paradigms.
founders of this nation did not create a land of opportunity by growing government. They did it by reducing its powers, particularly when the government of the King of England did not provide them with representation. The U in the United States originally was not capitalized, but the S in states was, meaning that the states were like semi-sovereign nations. Governance was more local and solutions were often more interpersonal rather than political. We have moved into an age where politicians act like agents of a larger special interest rather than representatives of the people, and as a result, liberty has been compromised. With your help, Lieutenant Colonel Sangari can fight this corruption and end this Middle Eastern non-democratic mentality of keeping an official in his or her seat for life, or replacing them by their own hand, pick subservient, and finally start focusing on collective American effort on actually representing the needs of all the constituents in the 9th Congressional District, including Democratic and Independent Americans, for our benefit, and not to advance the position of a single political party or person in our America again, advocating for honoring and empowering the American dream for all. Vote Sangari, honoring and empowering the American dream.
I am Sargis Sangari, and I approve this message.